Hey everybody, it's Kelly Marisha, and I wanted to talk to you guys today about, some people call them avoidance, but I probably won't use that word much in what I'm saying because I want to do more explaining than just kind of resting on a term. And a little bit about me, I used to be an anxious attachment, very codependent because that was the kind of family I came from. We're very close. And that is not a bad thing. But if you come from a family that's very close, you guys are family oriented, right? Nothing wrong with that. But when you find yourself not being able to think independently, or when you think independently, the pressure of being so controversial or so opposite or different from your core family, when that pressure, or if that pressure becomes like, I'm uncomfortable, or you might be getting sneak disses, or it could be anything. It could be anything. And not saying that you can't sit in discomfort, because sitting in discomfort is a thing and it's a muscle that really should be exercised. But there's always balance to what you're willing to accept and allow. And so when you find that balance, and if it's too much for you, you'll find yourself running back into agreement with the groupthink, with the family, with your core, because it's too uncomfortable to be outside of. It's too uncomfortable to be in an opposite direction with, especially if you spend an absorbent amount of time with your family. Holidays, vacations, and things of that nature. Who do you holiday with? Who do you vacation with? When your beliefs, or when your thoughts, or when your boundaries, or when your patterns are completely different, that happens, right? So I used to be an anxious attachment where literally pretty much 95% of my life I felt like was so patterned and so linked with my core that slowly but surely, as I started doing work with myself, I found myself becoming more of an avoidant. And I just want to sit and talk about that for a second, avoidance, because I don't necessarily think, for me, I'm going to talk about for me, I don't necessarily think that was a very bad thing. It was a complete opposite of anxious attachment, and finding the balance between someone that's able to run and dismiss and ignore and just move away from people very quickly, and people that like to form bonds, and people that like connectivity, and that like to be a part of groups or just your families. And it doesn't have to be like the family that you were born into. It could be your family that you created yourself. Doesn't matter. Family, right? To find that middle in between has been fun for me. It has been very interesting for me. But there definitely is a middle in between. And for me, one way to get me avoidant, and one way to get me gone, is if I see too much feminine energy, too much chaotic energy, too much unbridled energy, too much untamed energy, too much undisciplined energy. I am feminine enough by myself. I am a forest fire by myself. So depending on what I'm connecting with, and depending on why I'm connecting with it, it may require more masculinity than what I have. It may require more order and discipline than what I have. And that's what I'll need. I won't necessarily, again, depending on who it is and what I'm needing and what I'm trying to create, I have to see how much masculine and feminine energy is going to be needed to birth whatever that is. And so sometimes when I'm approaching situations, when I'm approaching people, if I see a little, for example, if it deals with business or if it deals with money, I am going to, for me, I am the creative. I'm the feminine. And I promise you that I have enough in me that can carry quite a bit of balance for a masculine energy. But that also means that when I am creating things, when I'm building things, when I'm structuring things, I depend on a lot more masculine energy. I outsource a lot more of it, right? Through men and women. And I hope that as you're following along with me, you will learn that as I'm speaking in masculine and feminine, if your mind is still programmed to think a man or a woman, you will be lost on my content. You're going to have to, if you're over here in this world, you're going to have to look at masculine and feminine energy as attributes, and as attributes that are non-gender specific. But for me, it is very important, because when I see more masculine energy, not men, masculine energy, I feel a little more safe, and I understand that that person, if they have good boundaries and structure around them and what they're doing, they're absolutely going to be able to lend some boundaries and structure and the building that I'm trying to do. And so when I do encounter a little too much feminine energy, people that are late all the time, that's one thing that I really look at when people are late and they're consistently late. To me, that is a little too much feminine energy to me. There's some mismanagement, there's some misalignment, there's some overbooking, there's some conflict, there's some time blindness. I do not need that in all areas of my life, in all projects of my life, in all parts of my business. I don't need that. I don't need that. And so going back into avoidance and anxiousness, I no longer feel bad when I get the opportunity to select someone that is better fitted for me, for whatever it is that I'm trying to accomplish, that has more masculine energy. Even if I liked the thing that had more feminine energy, I might have liked it personality-wise. I would have liked it. You're great, right? But when it comes to handling and trusting and giving over this part of my business or my money or structure or order, I don't feel safe depending on that person to be able to execute that. But this person I will. And before, when I was in anxious attachment, I formed so quickly emotional bonds with people, whether they were qualified or not, and I felt bad when I could not use them. And so sometimes I would even try to create spaces to keep them, which was out of alignment, right? And you all know, of course, I'm Queen Quantum, but not only was that out of alignment, but it actually would cost me time. When where I'm able to do now, finding that balance between avoidant and anxious attachment, right? I am able to select what's best for me, for what I need for business, for a purpose, for the objectivity of it, versus being emotionally swayed and manipulated by myself to work with something that I know is not going to be able to deliver and produce what I'm needing. And that's what I wanted to talk about, because I think a lot of times people talk about anxious and avoidant and all that jazz, and they're talking about relationships. But for me, it is so much more than that. It's not just romantic relationships. It's not just your personal relationships. It's this can be used, and this is a pattern. Like if you are an avoidant, you will have avoidant tendencies in your business. If you are anxious attachment, you will have anxious attachment tendencies in your business. If you're any other, every attachment style, it will show in other areas of your life. And so understanding what you are, understanding that, hey, maybe I can balance this out, finding that balance, and then learning how to utilize that balance, and learn how to utilize that information, that knowledge, into different areas of your life has been incredibly successful for me. That is how I actually started working with my celebrity clientele, because I got organized. I got a little more order and discipline and masculine energy into what I'm doing. And in 1 year, I had 6 celebrity clients. In 1 year, 7 months, 6 celebrity clients. But why? Because I put people and systems around me, masculine energy around me, to order my chaos, to order my creativity, to order my gift, to order the talent that I have, to order all this delicious yumminess that is me, needed some structure. It was just floating everywhere. And as I'm saying, like this anxious attachment, it floats everywhere so easy because there's really no loyalty to anything. It's very open and free and flowy, and that's a great thing for a lot of areas. But when it came to my business, and specifically for the order and structure of it, I didn't need to be airy and flowy and just anything goes and intuitive. No, I needed a boundary. I needed a border. And so that is how again, I just kind of wanted to give my thoughts, Kelly says, about how I use masculine energy, how I use the attachment styles, how I use them for myself, right? And then how I was able to see and start to manipulate and maneuver and kind of experiment on myself. Like, let's put a little more here and put a little more here and see what happens. Let's put a little more here and a little more here and see what happens. And I tell you 1000%, the more I tapped into my avoidant energy, and the more that I got more strict and disciplined and was able to say yes or no without really caring about another person's feelings, caring if I hurt their feelings because I didn't select them, because I'm not working with them. None of that mattered, because I got focused. I got tunnel vision on what I was trying to produce and where I was trying to go. And that order and that structure, that masculine discipline that I actually grew through being an avoidant, was very, very, very pivotal for me. So I love myself. I love you. I hope that this helps. But write your comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. If you're new here, say hello. And that's it. Bye.